Cloud. All right, welcome back. We are ACI course 13, actually class 2. It's June 7th, 2026. And again, I apologize for the mix-up last week. And I'm glad we're back on track. So hopefully you got a chance to listen to either Geshe Michael or my Friday morning class so that you're up to speed with what was talked about in the first class, which mainly was about the textbooks, and the reasons for studying Buddhist logic. So, with that in mind, in this course, I like to do the quiz debate style. But since we haven't really been together yet, I'll just do it usual way, which is to remind us that we learned about the classical text about uh, the study of the Buddhist art of reason that was written by Master Dharmakirti, who lived in the 650 AD India timeframe. And that text is called the Commentary on Valid Perception, not meaning it talks all about valid perception, although it does, but it's a commentary on a previously written text called Valid Perception that was written by Master Dignaga. But that's not actually the text that we're going to study from. The text we're going to study from is a monastic textbook that was written by someone named Prabhuchak Jampa Tsultram Gyatso, whose dates were 1825 to 1901. He's a Tibetan man, Tibetan monastic. He wrote that text, Key to Starting the Logic Machine, which is in that category of textbooks called the Dura, which means specifically logical arguments about topics in Buddhism. And it's supposedly simplified. I don't find them simple at all, but they're simplified because they're used by the boys when they first start studying this material. And then they use it all the way through their career, of course. And then we learned the various reasons for studying Buddhist logic. And one of those reasons was called a negative reason, which the negative didn't refer to not being a reason, and it didn't refer to being a bad reason. It referred to a reasoning that we use to show ourselves something that we can't can can't confirm with our usual sensory apparatus, or to show ourselves that something that we think we confirm with our usual apparatus isn't what we think. So a negative reason means we're looking at something that's not there that we think is there, or that we think is there that's not actually there. And in that regard, we heard that story about Lord Buddha making, before he was Buddha, making negative judgments. Here, negative meaning judgments in air that prove to be bad karma for himself, that interrupted his path to enlightenment for a long time. And so he gives us that quote: if you are me or one like me, meaning Buddha, you can judge another person. But if you are not like me, you cannot judge another, or you will fall to the lower realms, fall out of your practice. All right, we'll just lose our good seeds because we think we know something about somebody that we don't know. Because until we're omniscient, we don't actually know. And I don't know, it's pretty like freezing. Actually, if we take that really deeply literally, it's like I can't know anything about anybody except what I perceive. And then what do I do with that? But when we recognize that we think we know somebody's motivation, we think we know they're an ordinary human being trying to be mean to me, that's where we justify our automatic reactions towards them. And that's where we continue to hit our own foot with a hammer, complaining about why do I always hurt so much? Instead of recognizing it, oh, nuts, just drop the hammer of the misperception, the hammer of the judgment, the hammer of ignorance. Like if it were easy to do, we'd all take that hammer and just heave it as far as we could. Somehow it's stuck to our hand. We can't let go. So we're going to learn, hopefully, we're going to learn how to think more clearly about the things we believe about other people, about what we should do, about what we believe, in order to decide whether or not those beliefs help us stop making ignorance seeds and start making some wisdom seeds. Baby wisdom seeds is the idea. So I just want to plug this book, uh, Easy Logic. Can you read it? To me, I'm seeing it backwards, but is it forwards to you? Are
Yeah,
you okay?
we can
Okay.
read it.
So I don't know where you get this book, to be honest with you, because it was published before Diamond Cutter Press was whatever. Standing on the Sky Press, Jigme started that years ago. That's who produced it. It was written by Eric Brinkman, who was a student of Geshe Michael's during Diamond Mountain time. Really bright, amazing young man. Uh, I don't know that he left the Sangha, but he's not involved anymore. He went back to school. He got his PhD in philosophy or something like that. And he's an amazing academic as far as I know. He wrote this really simple little book on on how to apply Buddhist logic, Buddhist reasoning. And I always pull it out and read it through before I share Course 13 because it helps me remember the methods, and I'm just throwing it out there if you can get your hands on one.
It's
It
in
is only
Amazon,
English as
Lama.
far as I know from Amazon.
Yeah, you can buy it in Amazon.
Sorry about that. Boycotting Amazon. But doesn't mean you need to. It's good, it's helpful. Easy logic. All right, there's one last thing on your quiz, and that is we started into studying the sequence of logic and learned that we need to learn the definitions of all the different steps of logic so that we can apply those rules accurately. And we learned that as a result, you can give anything you want as a reason. And it's like, yeah, you can. Anything we put forth as a reason is a definition of a reason, but it's not the definition of a good reason. It's not the definition of a reason that we can use to prove our point either to ourselves or somebody else. And every time we say, because dot, 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 we are setting forth a reason. And we would want to learn to catch ourselves in whether or not what we say after because is actually a good reason for what we said before because. So, right, you work that out in your own language. What's the word that triggers everybody, including ourselves, knowing that the next thing that's coming out of my mouth is my reason, or even out of my head if you never say it. So we're going to learn what makes a good reason, what makes an invalid reason, what makes a not quite right reason, what makes a backwards reason. There are all these different ways that our reasoning goes wrong. And if we catch that, whoa, we've got this penetrating tool for thinking through what other people say after they say because to us. And that's what I found to be so, so helpful. Okay. So in this second class, it's it we need to talk about the all the all the different subject matters that we will be using to investigate, to learn logic and to investigate what we believe to be true ignorantly, so that we can show ourselves that we are mistaken. And so this class is a class on um, how to establish what we might debate about. So let me start here.
Lama, we didn't do our normal intro.
Oh, I forgot. I am out of practice.
You, should we do it now or you want to continue?
I'm going to continue.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Thank you, though. There we are. Okay, that was class 1. I didn't talk about this mantra. Let's just do that. So before Geshe started each of these classes for logic course, he said, let's call upon Lord Manjushri, the Buddha, who pledged, like, when I become Buddha, I will be the one that helps everybody grow their wisdom in particular. And then Lord Manjushri has a mantra, a short version mantra, and this is it. It's Om Arapatanadi is his mantra. And what they teach the kids is you repeat the Om Arapachanadi. You decide how many number of times. 7, 21, 28, 56, 108. You decide. But when you get to your last repetition of the Om Arapatanadi, as you say that, you take in a big deep breath, and then you d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d d until you're out of breath. And in doing so, we have called forth Lord Manjushri. He goes, well, who needs my help? And whoop, he'll focus in and help us. So let's do 7 Omar Rapachana D's and then D until you're out of breath, to call forth Lord Manjushri, since I didn't do it at the beginning of class. Okay, ready? On your own. Okay, we're diddied. All right. Okay, so this topic matter of this class is Shidrup ki namshak, not nyam. Shidrup ki namshak. Namshak means everything you wanted to know. Shidrup means things which we can establish as existing. So everything we want to know about things we establish as existing. when we try to figure out everything we need to know about things we can establish as existing, we need to be able to group things into categories so that we can think about the category, because there's infinite number of existing things. We would never finish learning everything there is to know about all existing things if we take them one by one. But we can take all existing things and we can divide them. Many different ways we could divide them. We could say, consider anything that's red versus anything that's not red. And it's like that would cover all existing things, but it wouldn't narrow it down very well. We could say, oh, consider consider everything that starts versus everything that doesn't start, right? Any pair of opposites, we could say, okay, here's this group and here's that group. Classically, the way they do it for our study of Buddhist logic is that they say, let's divide things into takpa and mitakpa, which means into unchanging things and changing things. So I am going to do the Tibetan here just so that we can get those words, get exposure to those words, because we'll see these words again and again and again in the mixed nuts. We hear them often. So when we're talking about anything that we can establish as existing, Shidra, there are synonyms for things in the category of establishing as existing. These are synonyms. Yupa. Yupa means existence. Sheja. Sheja means knowable things. Chu means any existing thing. Shidrup, anything established as existing by way of a valid perception. We'll talk about that more. And yul, which means an object. So all of these are different ways of saying the same thing, but they have little different nuances as synonyms do. So first we need to define what we mean by existing thing. And so they give us this definition. Tseni tells us it's a definition. Sema mipa yupe tseni. Here's yupe is from this word yupa, existence. The definition of an existing thing is anything which can be perceived with valid perception. Anything that is perceived with valid perception establishes existence. So valid perception we've heard before, so tsema is valid perception, means the information, given what we know at the time, given that we're not high, drunk, so sick, so mentally afflicted, we can't perceive straight. So now keep in mind that all of this background information on logic comes to us from Sao Tantrika school, second level, emptiness school. I can never remember if there's an R in here. I'll double check it later. So Tantrikas say you establish something as existing when you can establish it with through your sense powers with a valid state of mind, as long as you're not drunk, high, etc. What we see is there, not self-existently, because it has its own causes, it has its own this, it has its own that. But we're not at this level talking about things being nothing but our projections. It will all fit understanding that things are nothing but our projections. It doesn't negate any of this because this is all based on our experience, based upon believing that the things that we perceive with our sensory perceptions do exist. Sautantrika school says ultimate reality is those things that we establish as existing through our valid perception. Right? So the pen, our friend the pen, we see it, we establish it existing, it's here. Not self-existently, because it had to be made, it had to be purchased, it has to have ink, it has to have all those other qualities. Do you see? But it's like, come on, it's a pen, it's a real pen. And fine, a dog can chew on it. That's fine. Highest school says, that's not ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is the fact that this object is pen for me and pen for you, but chew toy for the dog and landing pad for the fly. That's its ultimate reality. So we know that. But to build the platform that we need for our ability to think clearly, to come to that conclusion, we start where we already are, which is, I believe, right? There's a wall outside my house. There's a lizard running on it right now. I believe that's real. I believe that's out there. Okay, so the definition of all of these existing things is that they are established as existing by valid perception. So now let's try to put them into categories that we can then consider the category and qualities of the category such that we don't have to go identify every single thing that is a yupa, sheja, chua, shidrupa, yul, before we can show ourselves how they do exist and how they don't exist. We can do it in groups. And then it will apply to everything inside that group. So one way we can divide this group of all things that are established by way of valid perception is we can divide them into takpa and mitakpa. So these two words are really rich. Takpa is often described as permanent and mitakpa as impermanent. But Geshe-la is always careful to describe that when we say something is permanent, we might think we mean that it will last forever. And so therefore something that's impermanent is something that won't last forever, but we would still might think it will last for a really long time, maybe, and then break or disappear. Or maybe it lasts only a short time and then disappears. But permanent means forever, and impermanent means right, not forever. But neither one gives the accurate connotation of these two categories we're trying to wrap our mind around. So Takpa is better translated as unchanging. And Mitakpa then negates the unchanging. It becomes not unchanging, which there's a subtle and important clue in these words that, in English, the root is changing and then you add unchanging to it. But here, the root is takpa, which means unchanging, and you add a negator to it, which makes it not unchanging, which now means changing. And there's significance to that. And I struggled with it for a long time because it felt so backwards to me. And I just want to point it out that when it occurs to you, wow, that's weird, think about it, right? Compare it to your own language. Is it just a fluke of English and every other language gets it this way? Or is it some secret key in Tibetan? Okay, so if we consider all existing things, can we agree that one way to separate them would be a category of all things that don't change from the category of all things that do change, whether they seem to stay for a long time and then be destroyed, or whether they're changing moment by moment? To be a changing thing is definitely different than to be something that does not change. And then it's like, are there really things that we perceive or can perceive that are unchanging? Like certainly 99% of everything we experience is changing either moment by moment or in the long run. But is there anything that we experience that doesn't change? And so we get to talk about all of that. So when we are learning sorry, getting ahead of myself here. When we're learning each of these concepts, we need definitions so that we can be precise about what we mean when we use the term to investigate these categories of things. So that when they're giving us the definition of takpa, it's curious in the text, it will first say, it's a wrong definition of takpa to say that takpa means not changing moment by moment. And it's like, wait, but that's what takpa means. To be unchanging means it's something that is not ever gonna not be what it is now. And that also means that it can't be changing subtly, moment by moment by moment. And yet, before they even define the word, they say it's an incorrect definition to say unchanging means not changing moment by moment. And it was like, what? That's what you said it was. And the thing is that what if the thing that we are considering is something like the horns on the head of a rabbit, which there is no such thing, right? Can we say that the horns on the head of the rabbit are not changing moment by moment? It's like, no, you can't say that because there's no such thing. It's not changing moment by moment, and it's not changing moment by moment because there's no such thing. But I just said it. Horns on the head of a rabbit. We got an idea, right? Some silly picture of a rabbit that's got horns. But that doesn't make a rabbit with horns an existing thing that we could then consider. Is it a changing thing moment by moment, or is it not a changing thing moment by moment? Don't waste your time because there's no such thing. The ramifications of that are deep as well. So they say a more accurate definition of takpa must include an existing thing, which is not such that it is changing moment by moment. And it feels awkward, but when we get to the point where we're digging in, we'll see that that kind of precision in the definitions help us recognize where there are I'm blanking out on the word, exceptions we might think we've found, and then we go back and look at it from the definition. So takpa means, it does mean unchanging, but its definition is an existing thing which is not such that it's changing moment by moment. It has that negativity in it, even though the word takpa does not have a negative part of its word like me takpa does. It's like inherent in the word, something about an absence, which is significant. Okay, got it? So takpa means unchanging. No, it doesn't. Takpa means an existing thing, which is unchanging, but more precisely said, an existing thing which is not such that it's changing moment by moment. Mi takpa then is the negation of that. The definition of mi takpa would be an existing thing, which is not such that it's not such that it's changing moment by moment, to be literal with the word mi takpa. But they say an existing thing which is changing moment by moment, which again is more precise than letting us think, oh, yes, we know things change. If I drop and break my computer, right, it's changed, it's done, it's destroyed. But I don't think every time I use my computer, it's deteriorating. It's leading towards its end. Like I brag, I got 12 years out of my last computer. Woohoo! I hope to get 12 more out of this one or more. But I'm thinking, hey, it stayed the same for 10 of those years, and then it started to get constipated, but I could work with it and it still worked okay. And then finally, the system was that it just couldn't cope anymore, and I had to retire it. But I'm thinking it's the same computer, and then it doesn't work anymore. technically, every time I come back to my computer, it's changed, isn't it? And so am I, changed. We're all changing moment by moment by moment. Mitakpa is this category of things, existing things that change moment by moment. Because again, would we bother to debate whether the horns on the head of a rabbit are changing moment by moment, or lasting a long time and then changing, or not changing at all? It's like, how can we come to a conclusion if there's no such thing? So takpa mitakpa. So not permanent and impermanent, existing thing which is not such that it changes moment by moment, or existing thing that is such that it changes moment by moment. Now we've got two categories of existing things. Got it? Now, within those two categories of existing things, let's look at the category of takpa. And existing things that are not such that they're changing moment by moment. What's in that category? Not my car, not my husband, not me, not, yeah, emptiness. I got the sign language. Empty space and emptiness. Really, that's about all in the whole category of existing things that are not such that they're changing moment by moment. But my mind goes, well, that starts a debate. Is emptiness an existing thing? As long as there's a thing, it's empty of self-existence. So there's not even emptiness as a takpa, as a not changing thing. But as soon as there is an emptiness, that emptiness is always 100% the lack of the object's identity in it. So the things that are in the category takpa, they rely on things that are outside the category of takpa in order for them to be inside the category of takpa. But the object inside the category of unchanging are 100% always unchanged. But are they always present? So if we take our friend the pen and we consider its no self nature at whatever level school we're talking about, it doesn't actually matter here. The fact that it is not a red and white Sarani's pen from its own side without depending on some other factor. That fact that it's not that is takpa. It is an unchanging fact 100%. As long as we have this object, the pen. The instant this pen is destroyed, the fact that this pen has no self nature is also gone. We don't say it changed. We don't say it died. We don't say it was destroyed. We don't say it faded, because all of those words imply that something changes bit by bit by bit by bit by bit and declines, the way our friend the pen did. So maybe it seems like the pen lasts until the last little bit of ink wears out, and then it's useless as a pen anymore, and so I throw it away. Or maybe it lasts until I run over it with the car and it gets crushed, and so it's not pen anymore. And I think until that moment of its destruction, it was the same pen, and then it got destroyed. But in fact, from the moment that the pen came off the finished production line, it's been changing moment by moment, headed towards its destruction. The fact of it being produced has produced the fact of its destruction. Same with us. The instant we took on this life, we're headed towards the end of it by the very fact that it started. We've heard that again and again. So, sorry, got myself distracted. That the not changingness of the emptiness of the pen, we understand is that the instant the pen is in existence, it's 100% lacking its identity and qualities in it from it. And it's that it stays that way, whether it's a new pen, an old pen, a my pen, a your pen, it's still lacking that self-identity in it 100%. The instant it's destroyed, there's nothing there to lack its own self-nature. So the emptiness that was connected to it, that isn't right. Its emptiness is instantly gone. It doesn't go 100%, 99, 98, 97, 96, 0. It doesn't gradually go away. It's full or not. And it's a hard concept for us to get intellectually, because even as we think things pop into existence and go out, we're still thinking, no, it has to happen moment by moment. This 100% or nothing is a hard concept to grasp. So in this category of existing things that are not such that they're changing moment by moment, the emptiness of any existing thing, the emptiness of anything that's in this category me talk about, is what's inside the category talk about. The other thing that's inside that category is empty space. And I'm not going to go into that now, but similarly, empty space is something that's 100% empty space, whether it's occupied or not occupied. The space itself does not change. So there are really only these two types of things in the category Takpa. So let's leave Takpa. And wait. Let's not leave Takpa yet. So is the emptiness of our friend the pen permanent? No, because as soon as there's no pen, there's no emptiness of the pen. So that's why the word takpa, when it's used as permanent, is incorrect. That's why takpa, the word, is defined as an existing thing, which is not such that it changes moment by moment. Because that does apply to the emptiness of the pen, and that does apply to the space the pen is in, wherever it is. So takpa and mitakpa don't mean permanent and impermanent. However, sometimes the word mitakpa does mean impermanent. As in the death meditation, we say our lifespan is impermanent. But that's the exception, not the rule. All right, so now let's switch. Actually, not quite yet. So when the text is giving this description of takpa and mitakpa, and the explanation has been given, the teacher is supposed to give an example. And so the example for takpa is emptiness and empty space. So they are the categories of things that are in that category. They are the kinds of things that are in that category, which is why they call them the examples of that category. So now let's go to mitakpa, which means changing things. Existing things which are not such that they don't change moment by moment, meaning existing things that are such that they are changing moment by moment. What are the classical examples of mitakpa? They say kawa and bumpa. Kawa means pillar and bumpa means water pitcher. We'll hear that word over and over again in course 13. And the circumstance Geshe-la described was that the students are coming to the teacher's house for these teachings, and the house has got two pillars holding up the roof, and in the corner is the teacher's water bottle for the day. And so when the teacher is given the teachings and he's looking around his room for an example of something that is mitakpa, he goes, oh, look, these pillars that are holding the roof up and that pitcher of water. Those are examples of existing things that are changing moment by moment. And the student's supposed to start thinking, well, wait a minute. If that pillar is changing moment by moment, like now it's a pillar and now it's not, the roof would fall down and it doesn't. That pillar isn't changing moment by moment. Eventually it's going to get old and the roof will fall down and then the pillar changes. Do you see, to show our own thinking that there is a level of changingness that we are aware of. There's a level of changingness that we're not aware of unless we think about it logically. And then there's levels of awareness of changingness in between those two, right? We don't see, but we know is happening. And so this quality or this group of changing things is really big. There's a lot in it. So there are various synonyms for changing thing. Mitakpa, changing thing. One of them is nupo. Nupo means functioning thing. Anything that functions has to change in order to function. And it affects a change on something else, which is like, that's what function is. So we get a definition for functioning thing, for nupo, which is anything which can perform a function, is the definition of a functioning thing. You could also call it a working thing, because to do work is to change in such a way that it brings about some other kind of change. So working thing and functioning thing are synonyms. And then they go on to say, it doesn't come up here so much, that produced thing is also a synonym for working thing, changing thing. And anything which is produced, and anything which does the producing. So all of those words are talking about the same process happening, but from a different direction. We've done that with Arya Nagarjuna. It's the thing, the cause for the result, or is the thing the result from the cause? And when does the cause become the cause for the result? If you have to have the result before the cause can be the cause, right? It just gets into all this jumbled mess. But it's all based on this clear logical thinking of what we think we mean when we say, hey, that made that happen. So that we can understand how it really works. Because it isn't really that thing making it happen. All right. So when we are in this category of all changing things, meaning all functioning things, all things that do anything, that's a huge big category of stuff. So we want to narrow it down if we can to be able to consider the categories without having to go through each and every individual one. So in our category of all existing changing things, there are changing things which are physical things, physical changing things. Meaning things that we perceive as being composed of atomic particles. Technically, composite physical things, they call it. Multiple things put together to come up with a physical thing, multiple physical things put together. Then the second category is shepa, which is mental things, which I still find a little slippery. I'll get back to it. The third category is demenduje, which is changing things which don't fit in the category of physical things, sukh, and they don't fit in the category of mental things, shepa, so they get their own category, demenduje. So first, we need a definition of physical things so that we can be sure that we're talking about physical things in the same way with everybody. So the definition of a physical matter is anything which can be demonstrated as physical matter. Like these definitions drive me nuts. Like I want something so precise that your mind goes, oh, that's perfectly clear. But this just seems like, in all due respect, sissy. Anything that's physical matter is anything you can demonstrate as physical matter. But when they describe it, it's because they're talking about physical matter on a more subtle level than I'm thinking of it. So, for example, if you were talking to somebody like brand new to this planet and somehow you can communicate with them, but they don't know their colors, right? They personally have experience, but they don't know. And they say, well, what is this thing blue? You could probably say, well, it's what your brain comes up with when a certain vibratory right level hits your retina and blah, blah. Or you could say, oh, look up. See what's up there? We call that the sky. And that sky is blue, if it is, right? Sometimes they're gray. Arizona, it's mostly always blue. But that's blue. Anything that you can point to somebody and they can experience it and you can name it for them. That's how we establish physical, something that exists in this category of being a physical thing. What's a tree? Well, it's this thing with a trunk and branches and leaves. But what if they don't know any of that? You just have to take them to a tree and go, that is a tree. That's what establishes things as physical things. Isn't that crazy? But it's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense because nothing you say about what a tree is or what the color blue is will give them the experience of color blue or tree until you take them to one and say that. And then they've got it. That's what a tree is. So anything that we can point to as physical matter is what defines physical matter somehow. Their classical example that I think you need for your homework is uh, an object that's hot to the touch. You can't describe the hotness to somebody who doesn't know hotness. You have to just take them to it and touch it. Don't make it too hot so you don't hurt them. I remember my little sister, I was probably 9 and she was probably 10 months. And she's just walking, not walking, but holding herself so she's moving around. We were all busy and the oven door was open and Anne's going like this against the cupboards and she puts her hand on the open oven door and she squeals, hot. That was her first word out of her mouth. She burned her poor little hand. But it was just like, she got it, what hot was. And she even said the word, first word out of her mouth. So she met physical matter in that way. Second category of changing things is changing things which are mental things. So we're not talking about this mind itself somehow, the raw awareness, but we are talking about like the functions of our mind. They are not physical things, but they are definitely things that are changing moment by moment. So they give us a definition of changing things in the category of being mental. They say the definition of a mental thing is something invisible and aware. And I still don't understand that. I've studied it, I've meditated on it. I haven't asked Geshe about it. I don't want to take his time. But it's like that which is clear and aware. That's what they say the mind, when they say definition of your mind is that which is clear and aware. But they say the mind itself is not what's in Shepa. I'm not sure where the mind itself sits. It's just difficult. I think of Shepa as being all the thoughts going on in my mind. Whether I'm thinking the thoughts intentionally or they're singing through on their own, or I'm listening to someone and I'm processing what they're saying. There's all this way that our mind moves in response to our moment by moment experience. And of course, it's changing moment by moment. And of course, it's not physical. So our brain is in suk. What we think our brain does, mostly in terms of the thoughts and awarenesses, is in Shepa. And then when they give the classical example for Shepa, they say Dewa and Yashe. Dewa means happiness. wisdom means yashe means wisdom. So like happiness is something that's clear and aware. No, it's like a quality of our clear and aware is to be happy or to have wisdom. So it's one of those things that we need to cook about this category of things that are mental things. It seems obvious, all the things that we're aware of mentally. Then all of a sudden, there's more stuff in Shepa than there is in Suk because we've got these thoughts going like this about all the physical experiences that we have. And all of that stuff are changing things that are not physical because they're mental, happening in awareness. Let's take our break and we'll tackle Demenduje.
I
Are we back? Woohoo. My grandma would go, oof, oof. All right, there's one. There we go. Okay, so if we're talking about changing things, things that change moment by moment, and we've already talked about physical things that change, and we've talked about mental things that change. Does that cover all categories of changing things? Are there other things that change but don't seem to be physical and don't seem to be mental? It's a little confusing. Like, I don't think I would have come up with it myself. But we have this category called demenduje. Demen means doesn't possess, and duje means working thing. But what it's talking about is a working thing in terms of a changing thing that doesn't possess either physical form or this aspect of being a mental thing. There are changing things that are neither physical nor mental. I've heard Geshe-la sort of fudge on this one and say, because they're not all physical and they're not all mental, like the other two categories. But really, technically, they're not mental at all, they're not physical at all, in the sense that we've been using the term mental, because there's certainly gonna be ideas that we have. And that is exactly what we're talking about here. Changing things that are neither physical nor mental are uh, are things like Sarani. So Sarani is an idea. The idea Sarani isn't um, a mental factor of anger or joy or happiness or wisdom. That word Sarani applies to something that's not physical, not mental, but definitely it has a meaning. But if you heard the word just out of the blue, you wouldn't automatically think of me. But now, for whatever reason, you hear the word and you do think of this thing that has a physical component and that you presume has a mental component, although you can't really know what they are. And we hold that it has this demenduje factor, which is, what do we call it? Its name, its term, its identity. What is this thing? Sarani, this idea. So they say that the example of demenduje is gansak, which means person. And this word person, at first, we automatically think, oh, a human person has an identity of some kind. And we use their name to identify that identity, and then we can all agree on it. But the name refers to an idea. It doesn't really refer to the physical thing, right? The term Sarani doesn't apply to this physical body. But my mind would go, well, yes, it does. But the physical body itself doesn't rely on the term Sarani, right? I have my own proof of that. It used to be Susan, and before that it was Pokey, and before that it was Sue, and before that, right? I've had many names throughout my life. And this thing was changing in its own way, irrelevant to what other people were calling me or what I was referring to myself as. So we think of person as human person. And then we meet some teachings and they go, wait a minute, any conscious being is included in Gansak in the idea of person. So the poor little cockroach, it perceives itself as a person in some way, not a human person probably, but it has its selfness, its own awareness. It has a Gansak. And then as we get more sophisticated in our study, we will even recognize that any object that we identify, we're believing that its identity is in it. In a way, we're giving it a gansak, right? The tree is a ficus tree. And it's my name for the ficus tree, but then as I identify it in that way, I believe that its identity is somehow coming from it. And we could go so far as to say, my mind is perceiving that tree as having a self nature, right? As being a ficus tree. So Gansak can even go that far. So we start out saying, yes, Sarani, Janet, Svetlana, those are all changing things in the category of Demanduje, the names of things. But then that would also apply to pens and horses and angry yelling bosses and flat tire. And it's like all of a sudden Demanduje that just seems to be nebulous category of changing ideas suddenly becomes pretty important to figure out how they exist and how they don't exist and what we do with them, because we're interacting through them constantly. And it like leans over into mind only school with the idea of the kuntak, right? We don't really experience anything except through our kuntaks. It's the same idea here. Quality, these quality of changing things, not just staying the same and then changing, which they do, but changing moment by moment. And eventually we'll investigate with our clear reasoning how it is that things are changing moment by moment. Because the importance of that deep aha is one of those precursors for the experience of seeing the seed ripening, which is the precursor for experiencing the fact that nothing exists in any other way than that, emptiness directly, which is the precursor to the completion of those 4 Arya truths, which is the precursor to being on the conveyor belt to the end of suffering for everybody. So it's kind of an important piece to work on this ability to recognize the moment by moment changingness of form, of mental factors, and of things that changing things that have neither one of those other two. And then as we do investigate, I don't know, I came across like this, I bumped into this wall of why are Demen Duje in changing things that I think that they should be in unchanging, because they blink in and out of existence. And then my personal, not from class, my personal is there really is no such thing as changing things. They're just ripening and gone, ripening and gone, ripening and gone, ripening and gone. But you can't get there, right? With You've got to really argue your case for that as we go to higher and higher schools. All right. So there's another group of things that are said to be in this category of Denman Duje, changing things that are neither mental nor physical. And that is Bakchak. Didn't write it. Is it S or C? Bakchaks. I have a J. Anyway, Bakchak is the term for the mental seeds that ripen into our perceptions. So they say those are changing things which are neither physical nor mental. They're something else altogether. They are these impressions in our mind, but that doesn't work either. They are these imprints. And so they are changing because they're influenced by every other imprint that's out and in. But they are not physical things, and they themselves are not aware, which makes them not mental things. But we can't say they're just the names for things like we said, Gansak is the idea of something. They're more than an idea. They're the source of the idea. So they fit in this category of Dem and Duje. So now we can kind of work with all existing things because we can work with physical things and we're going to do it. We can work with mental things and we're going to do it. And we can work with this smaller idea of the identities, our ideas of the identities and the seeds that make them happen. And we can see, like within this context, we have basically everything we need. As long as we've got the punchline about the puppy and the pen, we have everything we need, actually, that we can put together our own walk through the different levels of understanding emptiness and dependent origination. Fortunately, we're not left to do it on our own. We get guidance, we get training, but it's all wrapped in this beautiful package of all these definitions of things. It's not about just learning definitions. It's about why to learn the definition and how to apply it to our own reasons for doing things, reasons for our beliefs. Okay. All right. So I'd like to go back. Geshe did a little bit of debate. Just to get our feet wet in how to use it. So he started out saying, let's consider changing and unchanging things. Unchanging means not changing moment by moment, right? So if I am the one who's presenting the debate and you're the one who's receiving the debate, you can agree with me, yes. You can disagree with me, no. Or you can say, why do you say that? But technically you don't say, why do you say that at the beginning? You don't say that till later. Or you can say, I didn't say that, which you don't say that until you've said something. So at this point, consider changing and unchanging things. Unchanging means not changing moment by moment, right? So
No,
I got a yes out of Svetlana. So, so you're saying that the horns on the head of a rabbit are unchanging things. You go, I didn't say that. I say, well, but you said you agreed with me that unchanging meant just not changing moment by moment. And then you say, no, I didn't say that. And then I get to say, oh, you said that unchanging means permanent and forever.
Oh, and what about rabbit horns? It's permanently doesn't exist.
That's a great question. Does a non-existing thing have a quality of being permanently non-existing? Could there be a world where things are called rabbits with horns? Not in our world. But so you can't say a non-existing thing is permanently non-existing because it's non-existing. We don't know. We can't say. So this definition of unchanging, it must mean permanent. Which means forever, always there. As you said, permanently non-existent horns on the rabbit's head. So unchanging must mean permanent. You get to say, I didn't say that. That makes me keep questioning. So the instant somebody says yes to something that I say, then it's up to you to explain why you say yes. And until I say something that you agree to, you keep saying either no, or I didn't say that, or why did you say that? To keep me questioning. As soon as you hear me say something that you agree with, and you say yes, be prepared to give an explanation. So let me see if I can get us there. So consider unchanging things. They are not permanent because sometimes they apply to non-existing things. No, you say no. That's not true. What you're saying that they never apply to non-existing things? Yes. Oh, yes. See, I got you to say yes. So now you get to explain what is it about to be an unchanging thing is no. Unchanging means I'm mixing myself up. You explain why unchanging doesn't mean not changing moment by moment because it has to refer to an existing thing. that's not changing moment by moment, because that's where you caught me by saying the rabbit's horns can't be either permanent or impermanent because it's not an existing thing. So therefore, my first statement about unchanging just means not changing moment by moment is too non-specific. It has to apply to an existing thing because it couldn't apply to a rabbit's horn that's not an existing thing. That's where you're going to go. So you just explain to me what's wrong with saying unchanging means not changing moment by moment. Anybody? I have to say, unchanging means an existing thing that's not changing moment by moment. Because there's no such thing as a non-existing thing that's either changing moment by moment or not changing moment by moment. So if we're using changing moment by moment versus not changing moment by moment as the characteristic of dividing everything in the universe, it has to be something that we're talking about that lands on one side or the other. We can't be talking about non-existing things because we can't establish those as changing or unchanging because there's no such thing. So consider takpa, unchanging, the word unchanging. Its definition is an existing thing, which is not such that it's changing moment by moment. Yeah, okay, got it. And that means mitakpa means a thing which is not permanent. And you go, no, because that's too limited. Oh, so you're saying mitakpa means things are permanent? No, I didn't say that. You mean mitakpa means something more specific than permanent or not permanent. Yeah, oh, Luisa said yes. Somebody said yes. Okay, explain. Soon as you say yes, explain what you mean. Otherwise, you keep stringing me along until you've got it sorted out in your mind. How you're going to set me right. What does mitakpa mean?
No existing thing that is not changing moment by
Mitakpa,
moment.
not changing moment by moment. All right, the double negative.
Yeah.
Mitakpa is changing. But mitakpa means eventually it's going to change.
No.
No.
No, not changing moment by
Right.
moment.
No change. It gets so slippery.
Not changing moment by moment means changing moment by moment.
Exactly. So consider
So it's
your
not
car.
eventually, it's changing all the time.
Right. Consider your car, if anybody has a car. It's the same car as you had yesterday, right?
No.
No, you got a different car today?
Yes.
Wow, what the new one cost?
because it's not, the time has elapsed and my karma has changed. So it's not the same car.
Exactly. Different car. You get a different car every time you see your car.
Every time I think
But
of it or see
right,
it
every time.
or
Oh,
have
good.
some,
Every time you, right. But come on, while you're driving it, it's the same car.
depends what do you mean by same.
Right. Good. Good. It's like you could say, no, I didn't say that. That it's
Okay, no, I
the
didn't say
same.
that.
I didn't say that's the same car. Well, Louisa, you drive a different car moment by moment.
Wish, Luisa.
Oh, very good. Very good. So it does seem silly to play these games with semantics. And what I find it is that as we do, it sharpens our ability to really recognize, no, I believe it's my same car out there, day by day by day, even as I know that it's aging and changing, and even as I use it moment by moment, shift, 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 shift. And yet there's this like deep experiential, no, it's the same, it stays the same, I stay the same. But as we're investigating all of this, it's like, no, they don't stay the same. No, things are not the same until something breaks and it dies. And neither is the one who's experiencing it, as Louisa pointed out. I'm changing moment by moment by moment by moment. Well, then why is there any category at all of unchanging things if every moment everything is changing, changing, changing? We don't need the
Because
category of unchanging things, do we?
well, emptiness is unchanging.
Right, right,
So without the unchanging thing, I don't have the changing things.
exactly. And yet, without the changing things, you don't have the unchanging thing either, because there's no emptiness that
Without
those
them,
other things come out of. There's the changing nature and there's the unchanging nature, and it takes the both to have either. And that's where we're trying to get with all of our debate uh, uh, patterns, pathways, to point out to ourselves how we're believing one thing or perceiving things in certain ways, even as we profess to believe them differently. Because just knowing things don't exist in a certain way doesn't yet manifest as perceiving them in that way. So as we're trying to explore and find the thing we think is there, and then we show ourselves that it can't exist in that way through logic, we're planting seeds in search of truth, helping each other do it, which is planting seeds that will ripen someday, sooner or later, as the experience of that truth. That's how and why logic is so useful. Not because logic is going to lead to some series of statements where we go, true for everybody. Because it's not true for everybody. It's only true when they get there. So it's the process of exploration that is the function of logic, not really even getting to the final conclusion. And apparently in those debate ground, right, sessions that go on and on and on, it's the Giku, the one in charge, will finally say, okay, time out, go home, go to bed. He doesn't keep you there until somebody's finally won the debate, because a good debate weaves their way through, and there isn't really a final that which is true. It's the final, oh, I get it. It's the process happening. So it can be fun if we get over this sense of there's a winner and a loser, or there's a smart one and there's a dumb one, right? That was my block always. And build our own tool, our own method for investigation, and then just explore it and play with it and enjoy it and laugh about it as we learn how to do this thinking more clearly. So I hope through course 13 I can impart that for us so that we'll be more confident in using our skills, our thinking skills. Yes, Lisa.
Lama, how did you do this outside of monastery? Like, I feel like because I already did the course 13, so during the course we tried to learn the syllogism and write it, and so, but it just vanishes from our daily life, or
Yeah.
and then even when you try with someone else, let's say, I don't know, uh, Janet or so, I don't know, like we are not used to do that, so we don't know if we are doing it right or wrong. But like this is what happened when we were trying that time, and then we just kind of give up.
Yeah.
How did you manage? What would be a suggestion that you could give us to try it out, like to practice?
Right. Right. We are at a disadvantage that we're not all together.
Yeah.
Once or twice a week that we get to actually try this on for size. At Diamond Mountain during the terms, we had 2 nights a week that were debate nights, and everybody was expected to go there and go through the formal process of debating something. And to be honest with you, many of those debate nights, we had board meetings or we had something else, so I missed more than I attended. But when I was early in my sharing these courses with people, um, I I used I just called it a really sissy method of debate, which was I would take the homework and I would go through it with the students. Actually, we did the quiz with the students, but I did the homework with myself. And I just would frame things into a silly syllogism, like, okay, so it would go like this for class one's quiz. It would have been something like, consider that first, the root text about debate. Nobody can give me its title because nobody ever wrote it, right? And you go, no. And so then I would say, oh, you're saying somebody did write a root text on debate? And then you go, yes, somebody did. Well, you can tell me who that is. Yeah, Master Dharmakirti. Well, he wrote a text, but he never titled it. And you go, why do you say that? And I say, well, because nobody's telling me the title of the text. And you go, well, I didn't say that. So you can tell me the title of the text? And you go, yes, it is Pramanavartika. Do you see? So it takes more time to go through the quiz or the homework doing it like that in this silly way. But it allows us to get this thinking framework of pulling it out of ourselves. And then suddenly we know the material quicker than if we looked at our notes and wrote it down and looked at our notes and tried to learn. Like my old learning method was so slow. Whereas if you do it in this silly way, negate it all and then pull it out of yourself, especially when you're doing it with somebody else, then you both learn it together. So that would be a way to do it if you want to get together to do your homeworks, for instance, somebody rephrase the homework such that you're giving a wrong answer to the homework as your debate, and then the other person is supposed to clarify that you're wrong, and you finally get them to say yes to something you say, and then they get to give you the right answer. So do it with the answer key, and you'll get into this system of being able to learn the process. And then once we have that way of thinking, then we can apply it to things we don't know the answer to. And it'll go a little bit more smoothly, but it does take time and effort. Write those syllogisms. We haven't learned, we have, but new to 13, we haven't learned enough yet to be writing our own syllogisms. But when we start to do that, and we really start to apply does the reason apply to the subject? If 3 is true, then 2 must be true. If not 2, then not 3. When we really get down to that, we find it's very difficult to write a syllogism that holds for everybody. We'll find one that holds for us, but you take it to somebody else and they'll poke a hole in it. And it makes sense, right? That's why we do it. So it took me a long, long time. And I still am not good at it. But I'm not so afraid of it either. Right? Because it's okay to say the wrong thing, and it's okay to not know. It's okay to guess. And the rule of thumb is the first thing the debater says is always going to be wrong, no matter how right it sounds. So you always say no and be prepared what comes next. And then just keep saying no until the debater digs themselves into a hole. And they'll finally say something where you can go, oh, yeah. And then you tell them what's true. Do you see? It's kind of fun.
Thanks, Lem.
All right. All right. So we're done with class 2. I get 15 more minutes. Class 1 ended early, even though you didn't get to do it. So I am building up the time. Class 3 is long, and it might even take me 2 classes to do it. And in preparation for class 3, would you please ask someone to put some small object in a bag so that you can't know what it is? Some object that you can hold in your hand and investigate? Have them put it in a bag for you that you can use during class when I say so. And we're going to do that exploration of the identity of the object. Some of you have done that with me before, but if you haven't, it's a really fun exploration. The object needs to be something safe for you to hold in your hand, something not too obvious of what it is, but not too hard either. So enlist somebody. Like it could be a stapler or a hair barrette or, something. But you don't want to know what it is. Okay, got it? So we'll use it either next class or maybe the class after that, depends on how it goes, but let's have it ready. All right. So we didn't start with our usual opening prayers. Thank you for reminding me. But we did have our strong motivation to bring us to class because there are beings who are suffering, including ourselves. And we do have our devotion to our precious holy teachers who are sharing this with us. And so feel your goodness of trying to learn this material, trying to even enjoy it, I hope, on behalf of another person. And be pleased with yourself, please. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy being. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom may. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. All right. Thank you, my dears.
Thank you.
Stop recording. Yeah.